What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Montana Method podcast. One more time, as always, your host, Nelson Rodriguez Jr., author, creator, everything under the sun of Montana Method. Today, we have a very special guest. Brought me a nice little gift, Mr. Spencer Cook.
How are you? Cheers.
Cheers, my friend. We're not drinking alcohol. Spencer has a great story. Very excited to share it with you all. He's a hell of a guy. We've become friends recently. I'm glad we did. He's a great guy, all around awesome human being. I'm just trying to be around good people, and Spencer's a great guy.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Of course, brother. How was the drive? I know you had a drive from Long Island.
Once you pass the rush hour traffic, it's smooth sailing.
Nah, but it wasn't that bad, right? Because you left like after what time?
Probably around 10 o'clock.
Oh, it's not bad.
No. It's right over the pond.
Right over the pond. Right over the pond. You know what I'm talking about? I have a friend, Stephanie. She, Ross's ex-wife. It's like the mother of his children. She's Italian from the Bronx. So I do like my Italian New Yorker impression. She's like, "Oh my God, you sound like my aunt."
And he's a Long Island guy.
He's from Long Island, from the Five Towns. Yeah. So I whip out the, your Aunt Polly, she's been asking about you. When are you coming by to have some pasta? You know? Like I whip out that.
You know what's so good about a Jewish and Italian team? Is if the Jews can't make the money, the Italians will steal it.
Clip. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's something about New York, though, bro. You guys are just, whether it's Jews, Italians, Irish, like that, the whole New York vibe.
But you know what it is? Like, the nationalities migrated into New York. Like Ellis Island, like the land of the free. Like 100%. Ellis Island is where all the migration came into. So there was like, that's the foundation of, there's everything in New York. And there's an ethnic part of every part has a piece of something. Right. You got Little India, you got Chinatown, you got where the Italians roll.
Little Italy, you got all
Little
that.
Italy, the Jews are in Brooklyn and Diamond District, and everyone's in Manhattan is just large.
I love that, man. I love how you can literally go to a different part of Manhattan. You go to Harlem, you go to fucking Canal Street, Chinatown, you go to Wall Street.
The only thing I don't think we have is like you never hear about like Canadian food. It's like, yo, you want to get some Canadian food?
Canadian food,
like
Canadian bacon.
Hey,
with some Canadian bacon, eh? Why do they say they don't say about, they say a boot?
You know what it is? They're just still twisted because they're paying the queen. They're still paying the queen off.
Wait, what? I didn't know that.
You didn't know Canada's under the queen's rule?
What?
I mean, on paper, no, but they all pay the taxes to the queen. Like, if you look up...
Bro.
Yeah, they still pay taxes to the queen.
They pay taxes to Great Britain?
Mm-hmm.
Damn, so they're the opposite of us. We told them, like, yo, we ain't paying shit.
We threw the tea overboard and said, fuck you. That part of history was very interesting because, the queen made deals with our president. And, then the queen started to take land away from the president.
That's wild.
And they manipulated us getting into a war for our freedom, but really they were back-end deals.
That's wild.
Yeah. There are still countries today that are paying the queen. The monarch.
That I forgot who said it, but they said we kept what we wanted and we gave everything back. We gave everything else back. That's what someone, like a famous Brit, said once upon a time in history. And it's true if you think, they owned at one point when there was like colonialism, they owned like 70% of the land on the planet.
They were They were too leveraged. Britain owned and controlled too many islands, too many countries.
Yeah.
And they couldn't adapt to
all those different places.
Yeah. They couldn't handle, like they realized that they couldn't do business with all these different cultures and get on their level.
Yeah. And that's why they decided, like, all right, let's sell off some of these places or whatever. Yeah. It's wild.
It's almost like the Roman Empire. Like they bit off more than they can chew.
But I think where they succeeded, where the Romans failed, is that they kind of noticed their shortcomings and then they kind of pivoted. Whereas the Romans it kind of imploded, you know.
And when you analyze this, like, these leaders have to convince their people in their countries that they need to go this way, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like business. Like, you're convincing entrepreneurs and a team to follow you in this lead.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you take a historic, like that guy Cortez from the 1500s.
Hernan Cortez, yeah.
Hernan Cortez.
The conquistador.
1519.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He brought people from Spain and he tried to conquer
South
the Aztecs,
America.
which is Mexico.
Yeah.
Right. If he wasn't smart and mind fuck his soldiers, he would have not been successful.
Right.
You know, like he convinced some of those soldiers to bring family members.
Right.
And then once they got onto the shores, he had his generals burn all the ships.
That's wild.
So now you're a fighting soldier. You probably have your wife and kids with you. You just got onto a new land. And now you're looking at all those ships and you're like, there's no fucking way we're going back home.
That's wild.
And it's either my family is going to get raped and pillaged and we're going to die, or we're going to survive.
That's crazy.
And it's like you either sink or you swim mentality. It's like, if I throw you overboard in the ocean, you're going to make that decision quick.
That is crazy.
And that was the mental warfare that these leaders put on their soldiers, their team. Like, those ships are never going back, and you are never going back. So you either win this war, or you're going to die, and your wife will be somebody else's wife.
That is that's wild.
You know? And
they had a little more pep in their step when they had to fight some Aztecs or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
A little more pep in their step, a little more
But then
attitude.
you take, like, a leader like, he's a Long Island guy. You take a leader like Theodore Roosevelt. Like, that motherfucker was on the horses, on the front lines, shoving a sword down people's throats.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, that guy, like, you're not going to get leaders like that today.
Yeah.
If anything, like, the next best leader is, like, someone who just, like, avoids 97 indictments and having his house raided and not being thrown in prison. I think, like, that's, like, the new version of badass is, like, escaping that many indictments.
Because the federal government has become the new tyrant.
I very rarely, like, I don't know a single person in my life that has beaten an indictment.
Me neither.
Like, I've personally never come in contact.
And I think the both of us know a lot.
When you're
a few
indicted,
people,
you're done.
Yeah. I think the both of us combined know quite a few people who've been indicted. And to say that neither one of us knows one person who's beaten indictment, that's like a big deal. That's it.
Imagine beating 96 of them.
You're a GOAT. You're the greatest ever.
Like, I don't care how law-abiding you are. When you get multiple federal prosecutors that collude and team up
against
with resources, with an unlimited checkbook, and look through your whole life, like, the laws are designed for you to break.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're webbed, like, and they're based on interpretation.
100%.
So it's just, you get a jury to see your side of the interpretation, you're convicted.
You get somebody, you basically pay somebody and say, hey, I have unlimited amounts of money, look into this guy and find something.
And if you, like, and for them to have not found anything, it
is a miracle
makes
of God.
Me realize how much cleaner that guy really was.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
You know, like, if you can't find anything with that many resources, like, this is sick.
This is wild.
Yeah.
And he really is the only guy I can name that has ever beat a federal
I can
indictment.
name him, but I've never met him. Like, I've never come in contact with him.
Yeah, that's
but
what I'm saying.
I know he exists.
That's
like,
what I'm
I saw it with my own eyes.
It's like a myth.
He's a myth. He's a legend. You know what I mean? But, like, what people don't know about this as well is this is the most impressive thing that people don't think about.
100%.
Is that man, our president, when you get indictments, you need to then convince a whole law firm to stop all their business with all their associates. It's all hands on deck. So you're basically buying a whole law firm to convince them to focus all on you. First of all, you got to have serious money to do that, right? And then you have to convince that law firm that when this is all over, no matter what happens, people are coming after them.
Yep.
And now you're a target.
Now you're a target forever.
Forever. So you to convince all these law firms to do that, like, you need to be something special.
Yeah. You need to be someone.
Like, even if you have the money, convincing them to take your case.
Yep.
And not take the easy route of business and making money and choosing what they want to pick and choose. Like, once you make that choice to defend that man, there's no turning back.
It's a life-altering choice for sure.
Yeah, and business too.
Yeah, because the amount of money they're missing out on, like, they have to analyze the opportunity cost, because the amount of money I'm missing out on by not taking these cases and only taking your case.
It could have been the same. It could have been even more fruitful, but having
and less combative,
having the evil forces now always prying into your law firm, looking to wrap it up and destroy people, and looking to pass cases and find crimes and find mishandlings.
Yeah,
like, that's a whole nother decision. That
it really is.
People don't even realize, like, law firms aren't just jumping up to defend this man.
Yeah,
they're taking a stance against, like, humanity.
Yeah, and I think it goes further. Like, it speaks volumes about the world and the state of the world and the state of people, so that someone stood up, and enough people are standing up together to say, either we do this together right now, or the world as a whole is screwed. Like, we're all screwed, and this is going to be bad if we don't do something about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might be a martyr, but this is so important. I think I need to become a martyr.
And I feel like that's what life's all about, is just whatever you can live with and doing the next right thing.
100%. And I think everybody, that's why I always believe the future's bright, because essentially in our core, I believe everybody has that tipping point to where they see things go wrong and they say, all right, I have to do something about this. Everybody's tipping point is different. Everybody has a different thermostat, right? Like, so you might feel hot at 85 degrees. I might feel hot at 90 degrees, whatever. Let's compare it to that, right? Everybody has a moral thermostat to where they have to do something. But eventually it'll get to the point where enough people are on the right side and on the good side, and they come together and they're like, all right, we don't like each other. We don't have anything in common, but the one thing we'll admit to each other is none of us are evil. And what's going on right now is wrong. So we need to, like, do something about this.
Yeah.
That's why I always have faith in humanity, because no matter how different we are, the things we hate about each other, eventually the good people who just have common decency come together and they say, all right, we don't like each other, but right now we need to kind of figure this out and stop this, because it's not
There's a big common denominator connecting, like, that moral compass.
Right.
That, like, we might not have anything in common, but we have a mutual agenda.
Correct.
And we're going to come together. It's like, I live a sober life, and I'm big in the AA rooms. And, there are people in that room that, like, I would never share a dinner with. I wouldn't hang out with.
And if it wasn't for AA, you might not have met them.
Right. But for that 1 hour of my life, like, there's this mutual common bond understanding.
I love that.
Like, you escaped the same trenches that I escaped.
And
it's like, it's almost like prison. Like, you meet a guy coming out.
Yeah.
And it's like, like, we don't even need to have this conversation. Like, we know,
understand each
I know where
other.
you've been. You know where I've been. Like, we might not have anything in common, but I understand and totally respect your journey.
As I do yours.
Our journeys kind of blended in together and merged.
Mm-hmm.
I know the bullshit you went through. You understand the bullshit I went through.
100%.
And that's kind of like what life's about, is like, as human beings, we just want to be understood. And people in your personal setting who have never been inside, they'll never
understand.
You couldn't relate an ounce to them and get them to understand.
100%.
And sometimes it's not even worth trying. But those people that have crossed your path, it's like this kind of like namaste type of thing.
You know what I've equated it to? Like the good guys that kind of find each other in prison. I equate it to, like, either being like a Freemason, or only the people in that club understand, and no one else from the outside looking in, it looks like this crazy thing, and no one will ever get it.
No.
It's only from the inside out that you're like, you guys.
That's why, like, when I do speaking events and I speak and I tell my story, like, the longer I go in my sobriety, the less I feel inclined to talk about the details of the past. Because once you overcome it and you move forward, it's like you're so grateful for that looking back, you can't romanticize on the details, because if you are, you really aren't that grateful and appreciative that you got out.
Yeah.
You know?
You do have a sick ass story though. One of the sickest I've ever heard. One of the sickest.
You know what though? I'm just so grateful that I made it out alive.
And I'm grateful that you did, because, or if not, we never would have met,
and
brother.
I get to help people and help bring families
yes,
together.
And that's another thing I was going to say. If you never made it out, you wouldn't be the person you are today, helping people and making the difference you're making, you know? Yeah. That's what I think is really sick about your story. It's the ultimate redemption. You went from being this guy who was like, I probably wouldn't even want to be friends with that guy, right?
You wouldn't even want to be near me.
Right. To now, I consider you a good friend, great person, and someone I want to hang around frequently. And I love what you do. Like,
it's only because I live a sober life.
Yeah.
And I kind of like was taught how to live like a normal human being to do sobriety. Like I didn't know, like I used to commit 15 felonies before lunchtime.
That's wild.
Like that was normal life.
That's wild.
You know.
All right, just to give people context, let's get into your story, and then we'll bring it into Sober and 40 and what you're up to today. So, are you born and raised in Long Island?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Long Island.
Okay.
I was basically a
Jewish family.
Jewish family.
Okay.
Career criminal.
When did you? How young were you when you broke the law for the first time?
Probably 12, 13.
So you started young.
Yeah.
That's wild. Okay.
I had an older brother, and I started off doing favors for him, and this and that.
Was he also like breaking the law and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, but he for some reason he was able to just get out of it. I guess for him it was more of like a stage
or a phase, yeah.
A phase, and for me, it became my world. Drinking, drugging,
stealing, robbing.
I really didn't do any of that because I made the money with drugs.
Oh, okay. So you mainly just dealing drugs was your main thing? Okay.
Shortcuts, and I'm a big analyzer. Like when I was a kid and the kids were playing in the sandbox, I was looking at the sky and the stars, and I was like, what's the real meaning of why we're here? Like I was a very deep thinker, and
that's wild to be so young and thinking about that.
I remember being like 10 years old and like from Long Island, like bringing my bicycle onto the Long Island Railroad and going into Manhattan and like interacting with just random weird people and finding the bad kids and like doing crimes and like, I remember like when I was a young kid, both my parents are disabled. My mother at that time was going through like a second or third cancer phase. And like one of my mom's friends was like, Sandy, I saw your 10-year-old like 4 towns over on his bicycle.
That's wild.
And she's like, yeah, he'll be all right. He's good. Like for some reason, like my mother, I was the third, I was the last one. But for some reason, my mother always knew that I would come back and make it out. Like my other 2 siblings, she wasn't so sure about. But me, like she was like undisputed. Like she knew that like I would be okay. I was like a wanderer and I wanted to just always get into
explore.
Shit. I always wanted to touch the stove with my hands.
You feel like you were born in the wrong era of history?
Absolutely.
I feel like that too.
Yeah.
I look at pictures or movies and I'm like, man, that's what I was meant to do. You see cowboys in the Wild West or something, or pirates exploring the world of 7 seas, and I'm like, man, I would have fit in there.
I would definitely fit in really good in like the 40s and 50s. Like when people dressed good. And
you definitely would have been kicking it
differently.
Yeah. You would have been kicking it with like Bugsy Siegel and Mary Lansky. Yeah, bro. Are you kidding me? You would have been like,
who knows where I would have fit in because I'm like a black sheep, but like that feeling of being in that time zone I would have much rather that.
You know what?
Things were so much more simpler.
Yeah.
Simplistic.
I loved how everything was classy, handshake deals, elegance.
Yeah.
Poise, temperance. Bro, I love the fact that men wouldn't dare step outside their house if they weren't like suit and tie, slick back hair, I love that.
Yeah, there was just a different way of life and things were more simple. And,
yeah.
A man could just get a full-time job and bang out 10 kids.
That's wild.
You know what I mean? And like make it.
A house also cost like $5,000 back then,
Yeah, dinner.
It's wild. Man,
the world did change. I mean, I remember being a little kid in my grandmother's house and like taking one of those rotary phones. Like it obviously wasn't hooked up, and I knew like I don't think I was ever taught how that rotary phone worked, but I knew how it worked.
That's
Like,
crazy.
you didn't have to tell me as a little kid. Like I knew, like you take the number and you put your hand around
and
the
you
phone
wait till
like
it comes all the
this,
way
and
back. Yeah.
People will never experience like the basic technology that we grew up with. Like we grew up with this basic technology and like we kind of overlapped from basic technology to high tech.
Our generation
got
is
to
hands
experience
down
that.
the best because we started off with like pre-internet, that kind of stuff. We slowly moved into like the
That
base.
pre-internet was slow as fuck, but we dealt with it. It was
Yeah.
like you knew when
Yeah,
the
yeah,
internet
yeah.
was going to connect because you knew the beats of the. And then like no one in your household could use the phone if you were on the internet.
Yeah.
On like AIM 2.0.
AOL.
Remember those AOL chat rooms?
Oh my God.
Oh, only the strong survived.
That was the beginning of human trafficking.
You remember Napster?
Bro.
Remember LimeWire?
LimeWire was the shit.
Those guys got fried.
They did. It was fun while it lasted.
And when I was analyzing all that shit, I was realizing that the first one to the game on anything that's technologically in the front, that's pushing the bar, is most likely going to get hurt.
Yeah, because they test the limits.
Like
and
Facebook wasn't the first one to the
No.
game.
It was MySpace.
Yeah.
You know,
the Chinese are masters at this.
Yeah. You know what I wonder to this day? Where's Tom from MySpace, man? What's he up to?
Do you think he was real?
Yeah, for sure. I think he's just he's doing one of two things. He's either
We should go on a Tom hunt. We should make like a whole like docu-series of like Finding Tom.
That's a great title.
Finding Tom.
Finding Tom.
Like Where's Waldo?
Yeah, Finding Tom.
We're probably going to find Tom and like wish we never found Tom.
One of two things happened. I think A, there was a happily ever after where he got bought out for $100 million or something, and then he went to live in a private island somewhere. Or he went crazy from how Facebook crushed him, and he's out in a cabin somewhere just living off grid being...
He probably took whatever money he got and threw it in Facebook.
That's pretty smart of him if he did
That's
that.
what I would have done if I was Tom.
It would take a lot of swallowing of the pride, though, don't you think?
Well, yeah, but that's what you need to make it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to swallow your pride.
Sometimes that's all you need to do.
Yeah.
I love that.
For me, there's two things in life that matter. It's love and God.
Mm-hmm.
And the most unconditional thing about love is acceptance.
You're right.
I have to be able to accept my capabilities in life and what I can do, what my capabilities are, how far I can take things. If someone came around to me and said, like, look, you're only as good as this point. Let me take this from you and take it to this point.
Right.
And, like, I had some sort of magical, like,
formula
genie who said this is going to happen if you just let it go. I let it go. It's this whole thing's larger than me. Way larger than me. And I try and let everyone know who works with me, like, you're not the only one here. This is way larger than us.
You're right. All right, so you're this wanderer kid, right? You start breaking the law at 12, 13, Long Island. Your mom isn't really worried about you. She knows your nature. You start going into becoming a teenager, young adult. Tell me about that.
I was selling weed. Also, I was a good athlete, too.
Any specific sports?
Yeah, I was a wrestler.
Oof.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had such a hard time as a child figuring out who I was. Like, I think my thoughts were too deep, and I was, like, too philosophical for my own reality.
That's wild.
So I couldn't figure out if I was an athlete. I couldn't figure out if I was a drug dealer. I couldn't figure out if I was a drug addict. I just didn't understand my place in this world. Like, I bucked heads with myself so bad. And I got really good at athletics.
Okay.
I wouldn't, I was like the best in my city. I broke records, and, I was in the state semifinals.
Wow.
Drunk.
As a teenager?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I lost in double overtime in the state semifinals. I would have been in the state finals in wrestling.
But you were wasted.
If I didn't have a liter of vodka in me. I was a scared, little broken, fearful kid.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old were you?
At that time, I was 16, 17.
And you drank a liter of vodka before a wrestling championship?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
I used to drink literally when I first got my license to school at 6 a.m. If I didn't realize that I totaled 2 vehicles in high school going to school, like I still didn't even realize I was an alcoholic then. Now looking back now, I was like, oh, there's the signs. I wrecked 2 vehicles driving to school at 6 a.m.
Wow.
But I couldn't figure out like the more I got good in athletics, I was trying to prove to myself I can do this while being an alcoholic and a drug addict, and I was making money, and I just couldn't figure out who I was until I got arrested multiple times, but I always got myself out of it. And on the state level, it's so easy. But one day there was a helicopter above my house, and the streets were cut off, and I had a stash house in like Queens, and it's called Lake Success. And I was in Vegas, and I knew that the feds were chasing me in Vegas, and I got on a private flight from Vegas to Teterboro. And then I made it into my stash house in Queens at like 4 a.m, and the feds just smashed in my door, and walking out in the bright sun after you're recovering from like a 3-day bender, and like on 2 hours of sleep, and everyone in the block is staring at me, and they're like, I thought you were like a computer programmer. And like the whole like when you bring that much attention to yourself, it's like the game's over.
That's wild. I thought you were.
But I'll tell you something funny. From all the psychedelics that I did, and I was a big intravenous user, and I was an alcoholic, and
we'll get back to psychedelics later.
I had 3 super, super detailed dreams, like within a year and a half of getting arrested, like in fine detail.
That's crazy.
Like the faces, the scene, how everything was happening. And I got, after 3 times of this very lucid, detailed dreams that I had wherever I was in the world of getting arrested, I got actually accustomed to the dreams, to the point where after like the 2nd or 3rd time, I was just okay with them, because I knew that eventually I'm going to wake up and it's a dream. But the faces were detailed, the people, how it was all happening.
Where it happened, all that.
Where, everything. And then on that 4th time, I had that dream again, but it was actually real. And the same people who were in my mind that I envisioned and dreamt were the ones actually arresting me.
That's the craziest shit I've ever heard.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And then after it was happening, while it was happening, the feds were like, the Homeland Security and DEA teamed up to find me. They're like, why are you so calm? Because I was waiting for the dream to like.
You were
end.
like, it's because I've seen this many times.
I've seen this.
That's crazy.
And they're like, you're in some deep shit. Like, you're in some deep shit. You're actually like, you need a serious lawyer.
You need help, buddy.
And then reality was kicking. I'm like, this is not a dream.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy how the psychedelics and the drugs can do that to you and make you like.
So we're gonna So we're gonna pause on your story. And we're gonna talk about psychedelics for a second, because that's part of your story. So you said something funny to me the other day that I thought was really funny. I'm gonna bring it up now. A lot of people, when they trip on mushrooms, ayahuasca, DMT, name your psychedelic, they say, oh my God, I went on such a spiritual journey. What's your response to that?
They're just such clowns. Like, first of all, you experienced like a nip of spiritual elevation under a controlled substance. So it wasn't real. But look, when people say, like, I experienced, like, you need to come on these ayahuasca trips with me, I was like, bro, I was drinking that shit out of a straw. Like, when you were playing Sega. You know what I mean? Like,
when you were playing Duck Hunt.
I was drinking ayahuasca while going to the gym.
That's fucking crazy.
Like, I used to take thumbprints of acid, like real LSD, lysergic acid dimethyl, like real fluff, real shit. I used to test all the drugs before we would put it out, because there's an unwritten law that if you have any responsibility for letting out this type of chemical, you have to test it yourself.
You have to test it, yeah.
I've been on hundreds of thousands of hits of LSD.
That's
LSZ, 2CB, 25I, NBMOMEs. Like, I was a test rat for so many years.
I don't understand how you're alive right now. I really don't.
I don't understand how I have a half a brain.
Yeah.
But you know what it is? You're like, my existence here on Earth is far greater than I can comprehend. And that's the only answer I can give. It's God. I'm living in His world.
And anything's possible in His world.
I'm just working for Him. Otherwise, I've been shot. I've been shot at. I've had 2 self-induced heart attacks from drug overdoses.
Jeez.
I can't understand why I'm here. And I'm not even going to try and understand it. I don't want to believe in a God that I can kind of understand.
Yeah, his plan is so big, and he's beyond our comprehension. That's kind of the concept of God, right? That's the concept of a divine creator or a divine force that's bigger than, it's beyond our understanding.
But you must have faith that it's in His hands, and no matter what happens, it's in His hands. Because if you don't have faith, you have nothing. You don't 100%. Believe that what you're doing is right. You don't believe that you're on the right path. You don't believe that you're always protected. You don't believe that you're connected to, like, you have nothing. If you didn't have faith, you would have never made it through prison.
No, there's no way.
Honestly, it's the most powerful concept besides fear.
The only thing stronger than fear, I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I think the reason some humans and some men struggle with faith is because it deals with the fact of believing in something you can't see or explain. And some men have this obsession with controlling, and I have to know. No, you don't have to know.
You have to let it go. That's what you need.
Oof. There we go. You do have to let it go.
If you're experiencing something crazy in life, whatever it is, and you have the ability to say, God, this is what it is. Please take this because I can't handle this. If you're in that state of a being, you're really elevated. You're on the right path.
100%.
You know, because you're just a human being. We're human beings having these spiritual experiences. We just get to experience these little things. So when some guy says, hey, I just went on an ayahuasca trip, yeah, I'm internally judging him, but I let them enjoy whatever they had. But, you know, for me, the real meaning and lessons in psychedelics is, if you're truly blessed enough to get out of it safely, is to never do it again. The real meaning of drugs, whether it's legal, illegal, natural, not natural, I'm not even having that debate. It's irrelevant. A society can make anything legal when it wants to for money.
Yep.
But the point of it is to do whatever you have to do and never do it again. I had a mentor in life, and he said the point of psychedelics is to do so much that you want to be normal. Now, obviously, he wasn't the right mentor in my life, but I got dosed so hard that by the time I was in federal prison, I was like, oh my God, I just want to be normal.
That's wild.
Yeah. And I found sobriety in the most unlikely place. I was right next to El Chapo in solitary confinement in MDC Brooklyn.
What?
For 3 months. No one knew he was in MDC Brooklyn. Everyone thought he was in MCC, and the feds told everyone he was in MCC. He was right next to me in solitary.
You were next to El Chapo?
Yeah. I would fish him peanuts.
With the little fishing line?
I would fish him peanuts, and he would thank me in Spanish because they wouldn't let him shop on the commissary for $8 a month.
Wow.
I would give him some peanuts.
So Chapo used to owe you a favor.
Forget about that. What I experienced next to El Chapo I didn't ask for. And I'll tell you the story. So I did something bad, and I got sentenced to 13 months in solitary confinement. And I'm in solitary confinement, and I shoved as much drugs up my ass as possible to take into the solitary
Was this after you left Danbury?
No, before.
Okay.
Way before. Yeah. And
referring to Danbury prison, it's one of the prisons he was in. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did all the drugs in the unit. That's a crazy story too. And I bring it up into solitary confinement, and I smoke all the K2 in my ass that I was able to fit. This is sick. This is what drug addicts and alcoholics do.
Right.
They'll go to any extent, right? And that lasted like a day, and I'm so miserable. After like 3 weeks, I'm losing my mind. Like I felt my soul leaving my body, and I would like pray, like, please come back, please come back. Like I was losing my existence. And there was this officer named Officer Cook. Same last name as me, just without the E. 7-foot Puerto Rican, like 300 pounds. And I gave him a piece of paper with a name on it of someone I knew that lived in Brooklyn. And I said, go call this guy and grab yourself $5,000 and bring me in a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue. I know you can do it. And he looked at me square in the face and said, I got you, Cook, no problem. And he took the piece of paper from the door where they hand you your tray. Because you eat, sleep, shit, shower in that unit. You're not getting out.
Right.
So he made me believe that he was going to get me. And I'm on the 8th floor in a maximum security detention center, thinking that I just conned this guy into giving me Johnny Walker Blue. And I gave him back my tray because I didn't want to eat lunch. I wanted a dry stomach. I wanted to have the best burn that I could think of. And my imagination was running so deep. And then dinner came. I gave that shit back. I didn't want anything in my stomach. I couldn't sleep all night because my imagination was so deep. Like I was tasting the alcohol. This is how sick my disease was. And then in the morning came. I didn't even eat the breakfast. And then lunch came, and I saw Officer Cook on. He came back on, and he gives me this like nod, like we're cool, like he's got what I need. And then lunch comes, and I didn't even eat it. I give it back to him. He says, "All right, Cook, after lunch, I got you. We're gonna be good. I got you." And I knocked on the glass, like everyone does that knock, in prison. and
what's that knock like when people
right
walk
hand,
up to you?
Yeah,
right hand only.
Well, it's like usually when you're sitting at a table, you knock. It's like a sign of respect, like I'm leaving.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it came time for him. He opens up my little
flap.
Yeah. And he throws me the big blue book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he said, sip on that, Cook. And I called him every derogatory name under the sun. I threw the book against the wall like I was a sick animal. And that book stayed there for like 3-4 weeks. But like I was so nasty to this guy. Like you just fucking played me. And then after like a few weeks, I just picked up the book. I didn't have anything else in there. And by the time I got to like page 6, I was like, Jesus Christ. I'm having like a Jesus moment. Like I wasn't even in prison. Like I was like floating in space, having this moment with God. Like this connection, like realizing like, I'm sorry I left you all this time. And I read the book like over and over and over again. I had many months to think about my actions. And by the time I got out of solitary confinement, I didn't even feel like I was in prison anymore. That book saved my life.
Without being in solitary, there's no way that moment ever happens.
Never. So like when you're going through some sick shit, when you're going through things that you just can't understand, like if you just give it enough time and you force the patience to be there, eventually the whys you'll understand. You know what I mean? You just have to, like, I guess the secret sauce in life is patience. And you don't overreact and let enough time go by.
Right.
And whatever situations you're going through, like they will become more clear. But yeah, that moment is where I on September 1st, 2016, like I never went back. I never put a drink in my body again. I never put a drug in my body again. And from that point forward, I was like, eventually I'm going to get out of prison, and I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be a law-abiding human being. And I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going back to the life that I think is normal, because I know what I thought was normal isn't normal. You know, and I just develop a new playbook on life, on how to live like a normal human being. You know, and you have to give it to God. Like, you know, one of the biggest insecurities I had was financial insecurity. How the hell was I going to make money? I didn't know how to make money other than illegal activity. You know,
That's crazy.
like most people end up in jail, or prison. But they did half legal stuff. They kind of have an idea of like, okay, I just can't do this. Like, I had no clue. I didn't have a single friend on the outside that was clean.
Everybody you knew was a criminal.
My whole life. Like, if you weren't a criminal 24/7, we did not cross paths. Ever. Like, if you weren't an alcoholic, a drug addict, or a criminal moving, like, real serious weight across, like, state lines and countries, like, we didn't know each other.
That is insane.
Like, I would let other people deal with you. There's no way we're having a conversation.
That's wild.
Yeah.
All right. So
I built up a life of crime, and, you know, I got deep into the dark web. You know, I was involved with Bitcoin since May of 2009, May, June, July-ish.
The early days, huh?
Yeah. Were you able to mine Bitcoin on a laptop?
That's wild.
You know, and you know, I was just selling drugs online. I did have, you know, a street game and stuff like that, but I was just living a meaningless life. I was mentally, physically, emotionally broke. You know, I was just a sad human being.
So September 1st, 2016.
That's the day I got sober.
Okay. I know you did 7.5 years, right? Yeah. How long into your prison sentence is it at this point?
About a year.
So the next 6.5 years you spend sober. Well, until today.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the prison sentence like prior to getting sober and after getting sober?
Well, I'll tell you, I wouldn't let my parents, like, I was indicted in Virginia. So I wouldn't let my parents
come see
me. I wouldn't put them on my list. Nothing. I did my case and my sentencing and my plea agreement, did it all on my own. The judge said to me, she goes, "Mr. Cook, if you ever violate and I see you again," she goes, "I'm going to ruin your life. You get caught with a gram of weed in a car." She goes, "I don't care. I'm going to give you the maximum that I can." She goes, "You destroyed our communities." And then when she gave me the time, I was like, "Look, I can't do that. I can't do." She goes, "Listen, do as much as you can and then kill yourself." She said, "Hang up." She said, "Do as much time as you can and then hang up." And she made this stenographer be off the record. She said, "Mr. Cook, do as much as you can and then hang up."
That's wild.
And I walked into prison, like, so pissed off. Like, everything was everyone else's fault. You know?
No responsibility?
No, zero. It's his fault. He got me into this. Like, I was so, like, zero accountability. It wasn't until I started to wake up and realized everything in my life was my fault. Even if it wasn't, it's my fault. Those were the times in my life where I was really making, like, spiritual, like a real spiritual gain.
What I think is crazy about admitting that to yourself is, if you finally admit everything is your fault, what happens from now on is also in your control and your responsibility.
But even if it's not in your control, it's your fault. Because you put yourself in that position.
Right.
Whether, you know, good intent or bad intent, it's your fault. But it doesn't mean it's bad if it's your fault.
It could be a good thing.
But even if it's your fault, like, you can capitalize off of bad data. Bad data is good data. It's data. You know, if something's not working right, you change it up. At least you know what doesn't work.
Right.
You know, I did that. I'm doing that with my business now. You hit a brick wall, okay, turn your direction. Go that way. You know, throw enough shit against the wall, something will stick. You know? Like that guy from KFC. That guy failed like thousands of times. He couldn't get an investment from nobody.
Colonel Sanders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only ones who win are the ones who don't stop.
100%. That's the only way to win, you know? Eventually something's got to give. You just got to try enough times, right? So
imagine the thought of, like, it could have been that next time that you didn't try.
That thought haunts me to death, brother. That's why I can't stop podcasting, because the very next one could be the one that makes me. That thought haunts me at night, Spencer. The thought of not getting too tired to post the next podcast and then not posting it and being like, bro, I see the alternate reality of having posted that podcast and the podcast goes viral and my life changes overnight. And I become the next Joe Rogan, you know? Like, that thought haunts me at night. And it's to the point where I'm incapable of not doing this, you know? It's I know it's a little crazy.
See, for me, my understanding and vision of success is different financially. It's like, if you told me how many people do you need to help in order to feel fulfilled, like, I don't have a number. My version of success is helping as many people as I can before I die.
I love that.
Like, financial gains is not how I determine success.
Right. It's the same for me though, because the plan obviously is for enough people to see the content, to gain value from it, to learn from it, to see that they're not alone if our stories are similar to theirs. So in essence, I'll never know how many people I help, because thanks to social media, there's a good side of it.
There are people you're never going to talk to
never
who
gonna
are
know,
experiencing your content.
Never going to meet them.
They
never
could be influenced.
Maybe they decide to start a podcast. Maybe they decide to change their life, you know, be a good person, help other people, just because they found out that there was someone out there who has a similar story to them, like you or me, and they decide to but I'll never find out about that person. Maybe you'll never find out about the person.
I just want to feel fulfilled. Like,
yeah.
I think since I was a little kid, while all the kids were playing in the sandbox,
that's what you wanted.
I was just longing for fulfillment. Like, I just wanted to be fulfilled before I travel, before my soul leaves this place.
This planet, yeah.
Like, I don't care about anything else. I just want to be fulfilled. I want to know that, like, other people were helped in this world from me. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I think I was telling you this the other day. Like, I know this might not be probably mentally normal or healthy for some, but for me, it works perfectly. I have such a deep visionary mind. And once in a while, what I'll do is I'll just envision myself on my deathbed with like 4 or 5 minutes left. Like, my soul knows I'm leaving. And I get myself into that mind frame of being in that mind frame. And then I think about, what would I be thinking about with 3, 4, or 5 minutes left? Like, what are those 3, 4 minutes of thought going to be? Like, what is it that's going to stick out in my 90 years that is going to be in my 4.5 minutes of thought? Like, what of all this time is going to matter?
One of two things. Either all the great things you accomplished and all the good people you loved and all the great things you did, or all the things you regret not doing. I think, right?
Well, whatever it is, I know that it's not 99.9% of the shit that's going on in my life today.
100%.
Unless I'm helping someone deeply. But, like,
right.
Like, and then it brings me back down to reality, and I'm like, okay, this situation here is not going to be in that 4 minutes of thought.
Yep.
Like, let's put this to the back burner and take the high road. And,
yeah.
you know, it helps realign me with reality of, like, what really matters in life. Like, does this need to be focused on? Do I need to be giving 45 seconds of my life to this useless TikTok run that I'm going on, even though I hate TikTok, Instagram,
whatever it
is. Like, does my 45 seconds, am I willing to give up that 45 seconds of useless scrolling and giving all these useless people my attention? Like, I get very deep into these thoughts. I'm like, you know what? Phone away, computer, work, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, I got to, reconfigure my alignment.
It's a blessing to be able to have that thought process, brother. There's so many people, we talked about this, there's so many people who go throughout their whole lives without asking themselves, what am I doing? What's the reason I'm here? There's people who die and never have that thought. That's scary. That's terrifying to me. I thank God the day, because I had a similar moment, you know, where I had that thought and I said, why am I here? What am I doing? How can I find something that really matters to me, that sets my soul on fire, you know? And the fact that some people die and never ask that question is terrifying.
I saw this funny video the other day, and this person's like, "What's your dream job?" And this chick is like, "I don't have a dream job. I don't dream of labor."
I like that.
Like, if you're doing something that is meaningful, it's not labor. If you're living a life of meaning, it's not work.
No, not at all.
This world can be real beautiful if you make it that way. And it's all about perception. Like, there's so many things on TV and on media that can distract you from thinking otherwise. But there are people out there that wake up, they bounce up at 4:30 in the morning, and they're literally full of life, and like that is just so inspiring.
I love that, man. All right, so speaking of purpose, let's get back to this then. So your last 6 years, when is it that you kind of decide go down the road you're going down now, and you kind of find this purpose of like helping former addicts and technology, the tech, starting in the tech space? Lead me down the last 6 years of prison, and then how you got to creating.
Well, it was all built out of selfishness. I wasn't designing what I was designing to help the world. I wanted to help myself because I knew that I had to figure out my disease on a molecular scientific level. I needed that understanding in order for me to change my ways.
Did you start getting these thoughts? This was still in prison. You were thinking about, all right, I need to figure this out.
So I started buying tens of thousands of dollars worth of books, all written by PhDs. Because I had the experience of being an alcoholic, a drug addict, a criminal. But I didn't have the other half of the experience that I needed to have the full picture of, like, how is this brain, this sick brain between my two ears working? And how do I get some sort of understanding of what's wrong with me so I can go forward? Because I knew that if I was going to go out and pick up again, there's no way I'm living a normal life.
Right.
Like, destruction happens all around me. I hurt people. I destroy people. Even if I don't want to, everyone around me just dies.
Right.
My friends are either dead or in prison. Or some of them out there I just don't talk to anymore. But, like, you get the picture. So I was documenting thousands of pages worth of notes about what was working for me and what I understood about the science of addiction. And unbeknownst to me, I actually made 2 scientific discoveries on how to hijack 2 psychological issues that go on in the brain. And I wrote this down. In order to get the addicted mind to move from a state of pre-contemplation to action, you need to trip the mind in 2 areas. And one area is called cognitive dissonance, and the other area is called emotional bias. And if you don't hijack those 2 concepts in the mind, those 2 psychological, let's call them roadblocks, you're never going to make real, serious, long-term progress with an addict. So I figured these things out, and I kept all my notes. They were like this big. And I took them home with me. And then I tried to become a normal human being and get a normal job, and the society wouldn't give me a job more than $21 an hour, no matter how much I was doing or no matter how valuable I was to a company. Like, they were just taking advantage. Like, you're a career criminal. Like, this is what you get, and take it or leave it. I then realized that I'm here to help people, and no one in my small circle would believe in me or invest in my ideas. And I was just flipping big ticket items from China, putting them on boats, like big saunas and excavators and machines. And my sponsors like, look, either you're gonna do it or you're not. Like, stop talking about it. And within 3 years, I invested about $650,000 while surviving and paying bills, keeping staying alive on Long Island. It's not that cheap.
Yeah.
And I put my money where my mouth was, and I just laid it all on the line, and I hired the best engineers I could find from Meta, Space Force, IRS, Samsung, Snowflake, and we put together proprietary algorithms that are just on a whole nother level. Like, I'm a small little company with the most insane IP that I would put my IP against anybody's, and I'm 10 years ahead of the industry right now.
That's awesome.
So these two psychological phenomenons, these discoveries that I created, I actually embedded them into the delivery method of my app. I haven't even went to the patent office. I didn't want to waste time. Like, I know what I have is so serious that, one, it'll piss the industry off. And two, I don't trust the patent office. So why am I going to spend money on patenting something when it doesn't stop anyone from ripping you anyway?
Right.
And then we have the algorithms. And it's a real amazing program. Like, everyone who takes it, their lives change. And that's my fuel. Like, seeing the results. Like, I get videos sent to me from people, and like, I just had a video sent to me from a woman in UK. Like, I don't know these people, but they're influenced positively by my experiences and what we've built. And to me, like, that's the greatest gift ever.
100%.
Like, I don't need anything else. I just want to keep helping the world and let my program influence and help as many people as possible. Because when you fix one addict, you're bringing a whole family back together. Like, one
100%.
addict destroys a whole family.
100%.
Like, they don't realize it because they're stuck in their mess. But, like, there's so much destruction going on.
Yep.
And it's miraculous that when you just fix that one person or you get them on the right path, like, a whole family comes back together again. Like, you know, there's such a big problem to their family.
Right.
And there's so many successful people out there that are struggling with alcohol and substances, and they're holding on to these secrets. You know, like, a cop can't publicly ask anyone for help. That's a mental health red flag on their file.
Wow.
They're immediately on desk duty. And
From
they lose their
asking
gun.
for help?
Yeah, they have an alcohol problem. That's a mental health issue. Gun taken away, on desk duty, and we're gonna 2 years at least.
Wow.
You know how many cops are struggling with alcohol and they can't ask for help? And what happens is either it gets worse and worse and worse to the point where they lose everything and have to go to an inpatient. You know what I mean? They can't ask for help. A lawyer can't ask for help. A lawyer will get disbarred. You know how many teachers go home and smash bottles of wine? A teacher will lose her classroom.
That's horrible.
So many
man.
people that have respectable jobs
I didn't know any
are
of that.
holding on to these secrets.
Yeah, that's wild.
And they have all these built-in issues that they're burying, and they're just drinking it away and drinking it away. And all it takes is one wrong turn, and you kill somebody, you hurt yourself, you hurt your family,
crazy,
you lose
bro.
your job. Like, once I realized that losing your family and losing your job and losing your house and losing your kids and losing everything isn't a requirement to get help, I knew that I had something big. If I can create a program that acts in total anonymity, where someone could just download an app and get amazing hyper-focused treatment, when no two people can ever take the same program twice on my program. It's specific to what you're struggling with and what's going on with your life. My algorithms figure out what you're struggling with, and then based on that information, we redirect our first, second, third generation follow-up questions, like what a real therapist would do, directed to what you're struggling with.
That's sick. It's like a personalized.
Like in Therapy 101, which isn't, what they call it, but a therapist is trained to just get you to talk.
Right.
And then what they do is they're judging you. And they're judging you because they have to. It's called a psychological profiling. They're creating this psychological profiling on you. And based on how they analyze you and judge you, they will then figure out what you're struggling with and figure out how to treat you from there.
But there can be human bias and different factors involved in that process that
Absolutely.
don't exactly get you the treatment you need.
And when you say human bias might not necessarily be bad, but it's still bias. It's either weighted over to the left side or to the right
It's
side.
the right side.
But it's not zero. It's not weighted.
Correct.
So what my algorithms do is it creates that psychological profiling without the human bias. And that's why, I'm ahead of the game. This is called computational psychology. And I'm getting a lot of pushback, rightfully so.
Of course. Just like any pioneer, any innovator.
Yeah.
It's normal.
But the ones I'm not getting pushback from are the people who are taking the program and whose lives are being impacted positively.
100%.
The only ones who don't like me are the ones that have these cookie cutter programs.
Right.
They're making money. They're billing the insurance companies. They're having a party.
100%.
But emerging technology needs to be merged with the mental health industry.
Yeah. I love what you're doing, man. There's a funny story. One of my mentors told me a long time ago. He said that imagine you were the guy who invented the toilet, and you told people you want to bring the outhouse in their house, right next to the kitchen. You sound insane because it's like it just sounds terrible. There's a reason we keep it out there because it's dirty and it's nasty and it's filth. But look at today. Now it's the opposite. Now it's like, who doesn't have a toilet in their house? It's stupid not to have a toilet. And I think that's just part of innovating. Like at first people resisted it and it's stupid, but eventually you get past the pushback. It becomes something mainstream. You help so many people. And then 40 years down the road, it's like, you're an addict and you don't use sober in 40? What planet do you live on,
You know what it is? I feel like people have a hard time with an imagination of what life could be like in the next 5 years. And they get so comfortable in today's reality,
right?
That anything outside of today's reality is just too far, too it's stretching the mind. But technology is advancing at such an exponential rate that if you can't see this influencing the world in the next few years, like you're not an innovator. You can't see past the next mile.
Right.
I just want to help as many people as possible, collaborate with as many people as possible. Most people who get out of prison, they just run the other way.
Yeah.
They don't look back. They don't say, man, like this sucked, but like it could have been better. And the ones who turn around and say this could have been better, let's change the system. Those are a very select few people who talk about it, try and influence it, try and impact policy.
It's a hard fight.
It's not just a hard fight. It's like there's something in you that says like, I have to do this for these other people.
Right.
I'm not saying that people don't deserve to be in prison, but people in prison, it's the best time to rehabilitate them.
I agree.
You're doing nothing. There's nothing productive in prison to do.
No, it's about punishment. It's not about rehabilitation. That's the
and
problem.
if we can lower the recidivism rates, like you're really helping society.
100%. And you're creating good human beings who understand their impact of their actions on other people, who understand that in the grand scheme of things, when you help others, you're helping yourself. You're creating the world we're supposed to be living in, So, Spencer, this has been amazing.
I had fun.
We 1,000% have to do this again for sure.
Definitely.
I'll probably be back up in the next 6 months and we'll do it again. My brother, so I always wrap up asking the same 3 questions. So question number 1, what inspires you?
God.
That's most people can't wrap their head around that one, man. That's a big one. When I think about that, I think of a force that's so great, so big, and so limitless that I literally feel like an ant on the planet Earth. I feel I'm just like, what?
I would have given up a long time ago.
I
would be living in selfishness.
I couldn't agree more.
Self-pity. It's in me. Like there's a connection. That's what inspires me.
You know what I tell people? My idea for my podcast, my idea for my comic book, writing my book, all these ideas I get, they don't come from me. I channel them. Yes, I channel them. They come from somewhere else. Something way bigger than me, something way bigger than us, bigger than this planet even. And somehow I managed to zero in on that connection and things come to me. Whenever my mind is clear, I'm not worried about getting a fucking parking ticket or the stupid fight I got in with one of my coworkers or my mom. Like, I'm not worried about the petty stuff, the flat tire I got yesterday. That petty shit that takes up our day. When all that is gone and I'm at peace in my heart, in my mind, in my soul. And I'm like, man, let me try to get this done somehow. And I get the download,
I always think about how I can help others if I come across somebody in my world who I think that person needs to meet this person or connect them with that, I'm always thinking about how I can connect others. If I feel like, the universe is telling me like this guy and this guy need to come together.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm always trying to help other people, especially people in my little circle. When you live a life of sobriety, you're living past yourself.
Yeah. You know what I love? Speaking of putting people together. So when you picked me up in the car and I was like, yeah, we're going to record at my friend Ian's studio. And you're like, Ian Bick? I said, yeah. How'd you know? And then you showed me the email thread. That was crazy.
A friend of mine who my app is inside the prison system.
Right.
On the tablets.
On the tablets inside prison,
right.
Yeah.
A friend of mine a few weeks ago connected me on an
email
thread and said, you two need to meet each other. And, that conversation transpired, but you never told me we were going to Ian's place.
No.
And I said, what a small world. Like,
isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it really is. Like, the interactions you have with people are pre-designed.
Yeah. But think about it. I live in Miami. I'm never here. The one time I'm coming here to record because Ian was on my show, and then it happens to be someone you were like already planning on meeting. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's wild, man. Second question, what's next for you?
What's next for me? I'm moving to Idaho in about a month.
That's different.
Completely different. I've never even driven through Idaho.
Wow.
I have an opportunity to, I'm working on getting Sober and 40 accredited by the Joint Commission, which would put me on basically the same playing field as like the Betty Ford Foundation.
Wow.
Hazelton, like those guys. So I'm moving to Idaho for about a minimum of a year. I hate the cold, by the way.
You live in Long Island, brother. You're living in the wrong place.
So I'm moving to Idaho, and you know how like when you on Shark Tank and what's his name?
Damon John and Mark Cuban. And,
Cuban will always say like, where's your data? Where's your science? Otherwise, it's snake oil.
Right.
I'm like taking 2 or 3 steps backwards, and I'm actually going to
collect the data,
do real serious peer-reviewed studies. I have about 300 people lined up to take Sober and 40 in the sober homes, and
so that's what you're gonna do for the next year.
I'm gonna be in Idaho for next year.
I love that, man.
That's what's next to me. If you told me like, what's the one thing you need to get accomplished in year 2025 and nothing else, it's that. It's getting the my accreditation. I'm
excited to do this in a year or a year and a half and have you on and see the results of everything you've been doing, man.
That'd be amazing.
Last question. How do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for someone who helped others. You know, when other people think about their life and they're like, this guy said this that got me to there. I don't want them to remember me. I want them to be influenced by me.
Right.
I want a piece of me in others, but I don't want me in their mind.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need that. I'm a behind-the-scenes type of guy.
Right.
Doing these interviews and talking to people and being social, it's half forced, but it's half fun. You know what I mean? Like, I got to get into the mindset of having a conversation with someone. But they're meaningful conversations. I love them. But I just want a piece of me in others and help others live a better life.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
Spencer, thank you for coming, brother.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
We're definitely going to do this again.
Absolutely.
How can people connect with you?
Go into soberand40.com. I have a Instagram page, soberand40. Facebook. Check me out. Email me if anyone needs help. Call me, email me, get to me, hound me down, and I'll help you.
Sounds good. Alrighty, guys. Another episode of the Montana Method Podcast. Special guest Spencer Cook. Push it to the limit. The world is yours. If you're not chasing a dream, life is meaningless. Say goodnight to the bad guy. Till the next time.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.